Okay, call to order for Berlin Finance Committee. All right, first item is the minutes. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, any other discussion on the minutes?
I think I might have, when the minutes were circulating by email, I think I might have said this, that I think actually I didn't go to look at what they look like when we post them, because we see them in an email, but does it look different in the postings, Julie?
It's pretty much the same thing. I basically copy, and what I did was, because we had to make a lot of those corrections,
Yep.
I make a Google Doc, a Word doc,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just copied that exactly as it is and put it in the email. And so I made the changes in a new doc. I made a new version of the minutes because we had so many corrections.
Right.
I have a first draft and a second draft in this case. And then I copied that into the new email that I sent. I started a new email thread. And the only reason I'm doing this is because when you do an attachment, it's really hard to predict what people have. But is it a formatting question, or is something missing from?
The reason I was asking, I was just curious whether I've had a lot of people asking for what happened, and I want to give them the minutes, right? So I could send a link to the town website, or I could pull a copy, and I was just curious whether it would look like an email or whether it would look like just a document.
Well, what happens is once we approve them after the meeting,
Yeah.
I'll go back into that Google Doc and download a PDF version.
Oh, great.
Basically locks it. That's the final version. I'll mark the date that we approved it, and then I will attach that within the My Town Government, and it will be attached to the meeting.
Okay, so but the PDF shows the email. Yeah.
Basically the PDF will have exactly what was in the email.
Does it have the to from header, or is it just the content?
No, because what I do is I go back into, I basically used a Google Doc.
That doesn't mean anything to me. So
It's like a Word doc. So basically I'm basically using
okay.
Word, and I'm copying all the text and putting it in the email.
And you answered my question though. It doesn't appear what's posted. I was just looking for something that was posted, but it's but what's posted doesn't look like an email. It looks like a minutes. That was my question.
Yeah.
I managed to confuse the issue.
No, it's a good question. Nobody's really cared about our minutes before except June.
Well, and
Really?
to that note, Scott, if I could, because we haven't really had a lot of back and forth on the minutes, this one was a bit of an exception, but typically just going forward, we should make corrections at the meeting rather than going back and forth over email, just because my little open meeting law person on my shoulder gets a little, nervous about going back and forth via email. So if anyone has corrections, and I know this was a tough one, but we should bring them forward to the next meeting and just make them at the meeting, and then Julie can update them and produce the final document.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kristen. I think usually the corrections that I have are usually minor typos, and I just do them when I read it. But
Scribner's errors aside, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I
would like to confirm, Kristen, that that's the way we did it on the school committee. The corrections were made at the meeting. There was a conversation, and then the minutes were voted on after all the comments and additions and deletions were made. Not in advance of the meeting.
Yeah, just to keep in mind for the future. I have to say the comments were flying so quick that I was catching up to them after, and I went, oh, okay, well, we got there. So, but yeah, just for moving forward.
So did we get a second on the motion?
Yes, I believe we had a second. Wasn't that from that was from you, was it?
Yeah, it might have been.
yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
made the motion. Kristen, do you think we ought to put them up on the screen right now and make sure that in open session, we're doing the final approval?
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. Julie, are you able to share your screen?
Maybe. The thing is, because I'm taking minutes now, I have one computer that I'm taking minutes on and another one I'm using to get into this meeting.
Okay.
But let's see. So if I come here.
And I think all of the, everything comment wise was really spot on. And it's an important meeting to make sure that, we got it right. And like you said, Mary, it's something that people may want to see. So
Oh, I'm not May. I'm absolutely getting responses. Nobody could figure out what happened.
It was strange because people were talking once the meeting started. And I was right by the speakers and I had trouble. I knew it was happening and I had trouble hearing what was going on.
Yeah, it was, I mean, obviously one of the microphones not working. And yeah, it was clear that going further into details was going to be a difficult process. So I kind of cut things off a little short because people were not quieting down.
Okay.
there you
Ah,
go.
So I
So-
can share. Oh, you're bringing up the
I brought up the email, Julie, just because you were having screen problems. So
Okay, no, that's good because how basically this was the revision. If you want to see what I originally sent, that was the other email.
Is this the final version that we're voting on though?
That's the final version that we're voting on.
Okay.
And
So it's up.
um
I know I have no further comments. Looks good to me.
They looked very accurate to me. I actually stole a little bit from them for my TA report that I did on Monday because I was running back and forth trying not to have the meeting shut down due to overcapacity. So I didn't actually hear the whole conversation that went down in the cafeteria. So I thought they were very well written. I was able to steal. So thank you.
So any other discussion on this?
I'm all set, Scott.
I'm all set.
All set, Julie?
yes, I'm all set.
Okay, so go to vote, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Cliff, aye.
Julie, I.
All right, minutes pass 4-0. Now we can get on to, let's go with the things that were sent out earlier, which are the internal account transfers.
All right. June, do you want to walk us through those? You want me to? It's up to you. You're muted.
That's entirely up to you.
Go for it.
All right, the
Ooh.
first one that we had for a request for an internal line item transfer, the treasurer collector salary needs additional funding of 1,950. And there is available funding sources in the treasurer collector part-time wages that can come out of. And the reason behind that is that we did have an overlap in 1 week of having the treasurers here, and we had a little bit of a vacation payout that needed to be done.
Okay, so the motion would be to transfer the sum of $1,950 from treasurer collector wages part-time to treasurer collector salary.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? June gave the explanation. Are we all set?
I think so. June, you circulated your document by email before, right? I'm just not finding it, but that's okay.
It actually came from Kristen.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. All right.
Yes, yesterday morning around 10
Thank
a.m.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to a vote. Roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Cliff, aye.
Julie, I.
Okay, passes 4-0.
I have a procedural question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Normally, we sign these documents. What happens during a meeting like this?
Well, when we were in COVID, we actually, because Julie is so awesome, she is usually typing up the minutes as she goes. And then at the end of the meeting, just before you close the meeting, usually she sends the minutes to you all and you vote to accept them. And then I just print out that and attach it to the transfers.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, I really have I'm like raring to go to do that. And now that I got my other computer set up, I think I could actually show it on the screen once we get there.
Look
Julie,
at that.
You're awesome.
She's ramping it up.
Man, yeah,
You
here I
rock,
was impressed before.
I haven't worked off 2 computers since I left my last job a couple years ago. So it's like, just relearning.
Kind of addictive after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's Julie in the mission control pit, running all the operation.
All right, let's move on to the next item.
Okay, the next one that we have is going to be a request to transfer the sum of $5,000 from the tax collector's part-time wages to the tax collector's expenses to cover additional unforeseen costs that were not budgeted for.
What is Odyssey on that list?
The Odyssey, actually, we called them today. That has to do with the retirees' health insurance actuary.
Okay.
Does that. We actually had a call with him, or I shouldn't say we, Kathy called him today. And it looks like we don't actually owe that amount of money at this time. We won't have to pay that until August, the amount that we thought we would, but we also have a couple of other open items that we're not completely sure on yet. So right now it would be safe if we could do the 5,000 just to cover her. So hopefully we don't have any unpaid bills at the end of the year.
Okay, and health equity, is that like a flexible spending account?
Yep, that is actually the small, I think it's like $20 to $25 a month to cover that, as far as just the overseeing, I believe, of the FSA accounts.
Okay, and Kelly and Ryan, there are
Deputy collectors.
deputy collectors, yeah.
Yep.
And what's Harper's?
Harper's is the payroll company.
Okay.
And it also, we did have, as I think we mentioned before, some assistance with some reconciliation when the former treasurer left. And so that has to come out of the expense line item, but really we had the money, as you can see, in the part-time wages line item, because we didn't have a part-time person as Kathy stepped into the interim treasurer collector role. And we were supplementing some of that lack of office staff in the office by having some assistance from a senior worker who was helping out about 12 to 16 hours a week, and then also from some consulting on the reconciliation piece. So that's why there are a number of bills that are left to be paid this year. more so that the circumstances of reconciliation were unanticipated and the source of the funding needs to come out of expenses because of the fact that that's not an employee. So you're really just doing essentially a swap.
Okay, so I'll do the motion here. So the motion is to transfer $5,000 from treasurer collector wages part-time to treasurer collector expenses.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion?
Nope.
No,
Okay, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Cliff, I.
Julie, I.
All right, passes 4-0.
And the last one for the internal transfers is a request to transfer $4,000 from the highway part-time wages to the highway full-time wages. This was needed to cover this last week of payroll. Fred has had an additional amount of overtime that he's needed where he's been trying to play catch up with some of the road construction work that he's been doing, which has been being done on Fridays, which would require additional overtime that he did not have budgeted for based on the contractor's schedule.
Okay. So the motion is transfer $4,000 from highway wages part-time to highway wages full-time.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
No,
Okay, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Cliff, I.
Julie, I.
All right, passes 4-0.
Then we have another request for the reserve fund transfer. Kristen, this is for legal. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Sure. So the good news is, well, let me start always with the bad news. The bad news is we need a little bit more money for legal. The good news is these are all one-time expenses that unfortunately were really unanticipated throughout this year. And I do not expect them to continue into next year, being as that one of them was the Highland Bridge litigation, which has gone away. The developer dropped the suit. So that is very good news. The second is the ramp up to and attendance at the special town meeting for the school budget. And we aren't going to have that next year. So that's going to be good. And then the last was the Riverbridge, what's the word, negotiations that we did bring in town council to assist with. And that was finalized and voted at town meeting. So bad news, requesting another 10,000 just to close out the year with the remaining bills. But good news in that these were one-time expenses not anticipated to happen again.
It is good news.
Agreed.
Provided, I mean, I can't foretell the future that there won't be other one-time expenses next year, but fortunately for these, they're done.
And just so that you're aware, you have approximately, or exactly actually, $79,247.24 currently in the reserve fund at this time.
Okay, so let's do the motion. The request is to transfer $10,000 from the reserve fund to legal expenses. Anybody have any other questions?
I'll second it.
Just one for you, Kristen. What was the nature of the Highland Ridge complaint?
So this was when the developer sued the Conservation Commission because of the cease and desist.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
So unfortunately, we actually had to file some documents in court, or
Sure.
motions in court. So yeah, we had to get into that a bit before they ended up dropping it.
Yeah.
Right, any other discussion?
No.
Okay, roll call, Scott, aye.
Mary, I.
Cliff, I.
Julie, I.
All right, passes 4-0.
I think that's all that I have as far as transfers go at this point in time.
Okay, that was the main part of the meeting. So I guess the last item, Mary
Nick?
wanted to yes, go on, Julie.
I just want to double check, did, Cliff and Mary, did you get reappointed yet?
Not that I'm aware of. And I was gonna give Barry Yeager a call today and I didn't. I found other things to do. So
So this is basically the last time that we could do the transfers for FY '24?
well, we have until the 30th. Cliff and I become pumpkins on the 30th or whatever it is we turn into, Cliff. I'm not sure what it is, but
I think pumpkin seeds, perhaps.
pumpkin seeds. I'm just gonna get seedy. Yeah, I see. Well, so I'll give him a call and make yet another plea. It was too early. I that's what I was told the last couple times that I mentioned it. It was too early to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we do have a 5th seat open. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Come join the fun.
Well, Heidi Petard has expressed an interest, and the last time I spoke with Barry Yeager, I mentioned it to him, and his response was, So there you have it. But
I think I was with you, Mary, when we asked for your reappointment and potentially a 5th
Yeah.
member.
okay, okay, so I have a witness to all of that.
You have a witness.
But I will persist on that question and see. I was going to give it a push today, and then I remembered that we were remote. We weren't going to actually be in town hall because I was thinking, wow, we could get Eloise to swear us in and do it. It's like, no, I can't get it all done in one day. And so I'll nudge him about it. In June, we have a meeting on the calendar, June, Julie, for what? Sometime in July, right?
I haven't put anything in the
Nothing.
calendar.
Nothing yet. Okay.
No,
You're right.
but I think we kind of were talking about it at the last official meeting, not at town
Okay.
meetings. And I don't know who is available when, because I think some people were going to be away too, so.
Well, because next week is, the first
4th
week
of
of July
July.
is 4th of July.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it probably comes down to, I think the last day is the 15th.
Mhm.
So not looking at next week, but the week after that, so that means next week's Wednesday is July 3rd. So it's either, if we stick on the Wednesday schedule, it's either Wednesday, July 10th, or if we go to the very last moment, July 15th, I believe, is on a Monday. So what would be, for me, I'm expecting to be available both of those dates.
Is the select board meeting on the 15th?
Yes.
I would almost say if we were meeting for line item transfers, to do it on that Monday,
Which would be the 8th.
the
No,
15th.
No, 15th.
That's the next time the select board will meet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because don't they have, wait, do they have to approve?
Line item transfers, we need the select board to also give their approval or disapproval.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
reserve fund transfers, it can be done just through you.
Okay.
So do we want to go for the very last day possible? Is there at least 3 people? Assuming you're reappointed, Mary and Cliff, but are we pretty certain that at least 3 of us would be there for July 15th? Anybody have any? We also do virtual too, so
Right.
that gives us the flexibility there.
Mhm. I can do both, actually, the 10th and the 15th.
Okay, so I know the select board meets at 7 o'clock. Do we just want to do 6:30 on on Monday, July 15th? Would that work?
Select board meets at 6:30 now.
Oh, 6:30?
Sorry.
Okay, will 6 o'clock work on the 15th? And we can just do it virtual.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense, Scott.
Okay.
Also on this notion of having a quorum to do the business, should we use the procedure under the bylaws and give that 2-week notice to moderator. Just to enable ourselves to appoint if we can, to the extent we can do that. I think Cliff and I are both sitting in terms that expire, so we're not filling an empty term. Although the fifth seat might be an empty term that could be filled. Kristen, remember we've had this conversation about the bylaws and whether we can, if we don't get the moderator doesn't act, that we can go ahead and
Yes.
send that email.
We have, and actually we've done it before.
Right,
So
recently,
we did
within
it
the last
June.
year.
Yes, I believe we did this last June. I'm sure I can find the email. And, we could certainly take a vote that perhaps if you aren't reappointed by the moderator by June 30th, that we can send that notification out.
Yep.
I can look right now in my email and see if I'm sure I have it.
Yeah, because I mean the present position that's open would be, I think the rule was if it had been vacant for 60 days, which it would have been. Shane resignation was right around the first week of March, so that's 60 days would have been early May.
Right, but I think we figured on the renewals, wasn't it slightly different, Mary? I'm trying to go back into the recesses
Yeah,
of my
I had a
brain
little-
here.
Chris and I had a little concern when I read the language in the bylaw that we could do it for a term that was partially open as opposed to an appointment into like a new seat. But I'm not sure I'm correct about that. It was just a conservative reading that I had on the question. And I'm looking
I
at
think
it,
I ended up agreeing with you, Mary.
which isn't necessarily good news, but we do have the seat that Shane vacated, and
Right, because Shane's seat at the time was one that had I think that was Janet's seat that had the terms had expired, so it was not newly appointed. While Shane's seat, I think, took Stan's year remaining.
I thought that was Cliff
I took the remaining of,
of Stan.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I
Cliff
took
took
the remaining of somebody.
Stan's remaining, correct. And Shane's was the
The vacant seat, right?
vacancy.
From Janet, because Janet's term ended June of 2023 and Shane joined us, I think, last fall.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
It
So that would have
started
been a vacant seat at the time. So that seat, we might be able to fill that seat by a email notification following a vote. Let's
Still
just
looking
see.
for it.
Didn't you all appoint me? I don't think Barry did. I never.
I
Right.
believe we did.
Correct.
We
did.
probably did, Cliff, but you were filling out the remainder of Stan's term.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't like a term had expired and a new term was starting, and who are you going to put in the new term? I think that's, and I'm not the municipal law attorney, but I read our bylaws to make a distinction between that, whether you were in the middle of somebody's term or you were at the end and it's a new term starting.
Okay.
And I found here's a May 23 email that over Mary Arata's signature that does this thing.
Oh, good, because I was now thinking we did this by
Oh, wait a
mail.
minute. Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. She's just advising him of the term expirations. That's not the one that I'm.
I wrote the letter that we Kristen had sent
Okay.
by certified mail to Barry.
That's what it was, because his email wasn't working, and that's why I can't find it in my email.
Yeah.
Well, we have it in the office somewhere.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
we can certainly, if you want, let me actually just dig up the bylaw. I can't remember.
Kristen, your email is June 30, 2023. You have the bylaws attached.
Perfect.
We need Julie reappointed and I have 2 vacancies to fill.
Right. And I saw that one, but that's not the one I don't think where we actually notified him that the
Yeah.
FinCom was going to make appointments.
Well, Shane and I were both appointed around the first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It was not last fall. It was January, I think.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you've
the
been with
letter
us for a very
I
long time.
wrote, I sent to you, Kristen, on October 4th. You look for a email from me, it has the attachment of the letter that we sent to Barry around
Perfect.
5:40 PM.
Scott.
I can
Okay.
re-forward it to you if you have it.
I'm sure I have it, but if you don't mind sending it, that'll save me some digging.
Okay, let me just do it here.
And I'm looking at the bylaw right now and I'm seeing 60-day thing.
Yeah, I sent an email also on June 30th last year, Chris, and I just forwarded a copy to you and Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's got to be vacant for 60 days.
Right,
And
so,
then you can
yeah.
give written notice of the vacancy to the moderator who with the remaining member, and then the FinCom can fill it after 1 week's notice. So I think you're right, Mary. I think that that is the stricter but likely more accurate interpretation of that bylaw.
So I'll get in touch with Barry again.
Okay.
And I could even type up one of those half sheets of paper for him, but that would probably just annoy him. I don't think I'll do that. But I will impress on him the urgency because that means we can't function for 60 days in a week.
Right.
yeah, I'm just gonna turn on a light. I'm fading away.
You are, and I have some serious lightning going on outside my window here.
Yeah, it's
What's
coming.
going on?
Yeah, it's coming here. So I'm going to be optimistic about my ability to work on this.
Okay.
So we'll see how it goes.
All right, that sounds like our best option, Mary, and I can help too. And although I didn't get anywhere last year, so but I'm happy to help it any way I can. Just let me know.
And I'll send an email begging him to like help me out here for the fiscal year 24.
That would be
Oh,
good.
thank you, June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he will listen to you.
Well,
I think he'll get the 2 appointments in because he understands. It's a whole different story when he knows we won't be able to meet.
to finalize
Very
something.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Right. Well, it was too early before, so now maybe it's just right. We're at a Goldilocks point here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you date those June 30th? Could you date those appointments June 30th? We'll get in and take care of it.
Okay.
Uh,
Any more on the appointments?
no.
All right. So then the next item, I think we wanted discussion about an underride.
Yeah. And
So
you want me to talk about it, Scott?
sure.
So after the last 2 years and listening to Scott Hawkins' comment, I think it was at the June 3rd select board meeting that I was listening in on, where he said, I've always wanted to do something with our excess levy capacity. And I didn't really understand it, but I thought about it. And looking at what we've been through, I went and looked up what I circulated to you all, the Division of Local Services, DOR's explanation of levy and levy capacity and so on. And I would like to see us reduce our excess levy capacity via an underride vote. And the little primer that I passed around says that the vote vote by select board, is that 2/3? But the vote by the citizens is a majority vote to do that. And I looked at our budget, Kristen, on the Excel file for the fiscal 25 budget and our excess levy capacity before we do whatever we're gonna do with the schools here. It was, 1,600,000 and change.
Yep.
So I would propose that we take a significant chunk out of that and offer it to the voters in an underride. And the primary reason for that is, if I understand things right, Scott, please educate me if I'm not getting it right, but I think it would limit the ability of the schools in town collectively to do the kind of tax increases that have been urged on us by the school committee.
Yes, I mean, it would if it got through the vote, because I think I'm not sure I've never been involved with an override or underride situation, so I'm not sure of the process. 'Cause I'm assuming that it would probably need to pass at town meeting also.
Mhm.
I'm making that assumption.
Well, we do, my understanding is we're gonna have a fall town meeting.
Yes.
And if the select board would agree to this proposal, then it could go on the warrant for the fall town meeting.
Right, and then if it passes at the town meeting, then it goes to a regular vote. And I'm not sure what the time frame of that is.
That's the part I don't know. That wasn't in the little primer, but I didn't dig into any details, Scott, so you may know more about it than I do.
I do not know more details on
Yeah.
it. This is an
I
area I'm not familiar with.
looked it up a little bit because I saw that we were anticipated to speak about it. So the state puts out like a Proposition 2.5 primer, and there's not a lot of information out there rather about underrides, believe it or not. But because it's not something where you are appropriating funding at town meeting and then also approving the excess of Prop 2.5 at the ballot, it looks as if it can go to the ballot by the select board. So this is interesting to me because, and I'd have to double check this, but according to the state's guidelines here, it says a majority vote of the selectmen allows an underride question to be placed on the ballot. It can also be placed on the ballot by people using a local initiative procedure, which would be a citizen's petition. Underride questions must state the dollar amount and require a majority vote of approval by the electorate. So town meeting does the appropriation part of an override, but since in this case there's no appropriation, that makes sense to me why it would just go straight to a ballot.
So it would go to select board vote and then to ballot, is that it?
That's my understanding in reading this. And if it's
Yeah, okay.
something we want to move forward, I didn't want to, spend time doing the legal research right now or paying legal to confirm, if you will. But if it's something we end up moving forward with, we'll certainly get a 100% sure answer on that.
So Kristen, my question is, when it says go to ballot, does it have to be a special election as well, or part of another election process? Or it can be a part of it?
I would actually think that it could be part of the annual elections in May, or you could hold a special election. I don't know that Eloise will love that one. I don't blame her after this past year with the extra town meeting.
I'm asking. I think that's going to be one of the questions.
Absolutely. And I don't know if there's a certain amount of time from when the select board takes that vote to when it needs to go on a ballot. That might set a clock. So that's something we'd have to check as well.
Okay.
So I have a question. I didn't really understand it very well reading the primer, and I didn't do any further research. But does the underride only affect the year in which it's voted, or is it permanent?
It's a permanent.
Permanent.
Really?
Yeah, June, you've got a lot of history. Have you ever seen one of these?
Based on what I have for information or what financial information I have, I've never seen an underride, not here in town anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it may have been one before my time. But normally, it's good to have excess levy capacity normally for borrowing and that type of stuff. Just so that way there you can say that, the town is very fiscally responsible and they have, a plan in place, but can it be done? Absolutely. It's going to restrict you. So it's a permanent thing. So if at one time we have a major issue that goes on, anything over and above what's available would have to go to the taxpayers as an override to increase anything after that. So that's the only thing.
Right. I would echo to what June said, in that it does really help our bond rating and makes us look fiscally responsible that we have that excess levy and we're not using it. Also, because it is permanent, once not only do you reset the levy and you lose that money, but you also lose the 2.5% that you can take on that lost money permanently too. So it does have a long-term impact in several areas. And the one other thing I would caution is, as we finish up our facility study, we are seeing numerous problems with our buildings that I am actually going to recommend we put more money into our building maintenance going forward, which may require us over time to dip a little bit into that levy capacity in a smart, sustained, slow kind of way, because we have millions of dollars that need to be put into our buildings. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do that all, and I would never suggest we do it right away. But having that excess levy and being able to use it responsibly, slowly and incrementally over time, has a huge benefit if we run into other issues as well, not just the buildings, but you just don't know what might crop up, emergency situation wise. So that I certainly understand the concern about the last 2 years, but I think it is also concerning to lose it and not ever be able to get it back except through an override, which is not all that likely to pass.
I do have to say too, that we may also want to, on that, what Kristen just said, as far as building repairs and things, we may have to look at more on the lines of doing short-term borrowing, maybe, if we were to do an underride, just so that way if we have to do short bump ups, we may have to look at it that way. So I definitely think that it would be a good idea to definitely talk about it and maybe sit down and see all the effects that it might take before you commit. But that would just be a suggestion. That would be up to you.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
Yeah. You know how for the free cash, several years ago, we worked out that plan of how we would use free cash,
The guidelines.
the guidelines.
Yes.
Yep.
One of the things I think about this excess levy capacity is it's this sort of black hole. It's a number that some people, that we've run into the past couple of years, they hear about it and they assume it's money that we have and that we could use it. If we developed as the town, with maybe with some of the other departments, with Kristen, basically the reasons that we have that capacity, what the town's goals were, if we would use it. Because right now we don't really have that. We have the excess levy capacity. But if we're talking about, in the coming years, we're going to be dealing with building maintenance and big projects and emergencies. I think having some sort of guideline so that when we're talking to the voters, we're like, this is how we're making the decision to use this.
I think that's a great idea, Julie. I'm concerned, excuse me, that in an era where everything is increasing at a 4 to 5% rate,
Yeah,
we're struggling with a 2.5% levy
Mhm.
limit. Why would we put ourselves in even bigger bind? I mean,
The-
but just salaries alone, never
Right.
mind anything else. I mean, I don't know what the schools negotiated for a contract, but undoubtedly it's a 3 to 4% increase. I forget what Kristen, what you've done for the town employees, but those
Two.
numbers don't line up. I mean, the 2.5, I understand the purpose of it. I've been living with it my whole adult life. But in a world or in a state where 4% is more like what is happening, I understand why it's difficult for towns to raise the appropriate amount of money.
Yeah, Cliff, everything that everybody's saying, I have anticipated, and they're all valid. Everything that you're saying is valid. One of the things that has puzzled me in the past is why the two Scots, so I'm going to talk to you like you're not here, Scott, why the two Scots always want to go to the dollar amounts. And I'm like, no, give me percents. And they're like always going to the dollar amounts. And so one of the things that I'm coming to understand, because this has been hard for me to understand this, is that the dollar amount counts. It isn't just the percentages, Cliff, it's the dollar amount. And so my question to you, June, about the town being fiscally responsible and the bond ratings and the kind of favorable financial treatment we get when we need to borrow money or do that kind of thing. And then Kristen's point about, yeah, we're gonna have needs, we're gonna have emergencies, we got to hold for that. But we have on what are we now, around 17 million in our town budget, is that something like that?
Yep.
And we have 1.66 million in excess levy capacity. So my challenge to everybody here is, can you go to the DOR and say, do you have a guideline about for fiscal responsibility? I kind of think we have more there than we need.
Actually, I just went online. They do, on the DLS does have a
Okay.
excess levy capacity, so you can see where it ranks with other towns.
Oh,
Just to get an idea on that, we're not the only ones with excess levy capacity. I think, I know Dennis Fairbay and I had always really hated the idea of us talking about an underride, but I think it's probably, for me, it's the whole reasoning behind not doing it. And I know Scots are totally just opposite of what I think, but I can actually remember doing the recap sheet and actually having to work within $100 of having to go back to the town meeting and cut budgets just to be within our levy capacity. So when the malls came in is when all the excess levy capacity came in. And that was just one of those things that it's there if needed, but we hope that we never need it, just because it does increase your taxes. And that was our thought. But
Right now, June, we have a mall failing. So do we need to adjust?
exactly. So we may have to relook at how things are just based on that. I don't know how, I don't want to put that out there. We may lose power, just to let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the.
Yeah, I think it's probably a really good idea. I think that we just need to do a little bit more discussion and brainstorming on it. Would be my suggestion. Sorry. Just because of the fact that if we bring ourselves down too low, then everything that is going to be increased is going to have to go for a Proposition 2.5 override.
Well, right. And I can understand exactly why we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But
But I get with the school way that it went the last couple of years,
This is why I think having a town policy on how we are approaching the levy going forward. Because basically, instead of it just being a sort of last minute, let's fix something,
mhm.
we would have a guideline saying these are under the conditions where we would see a need to approach it. And that would be also being more transparent to the voters who don't really pay attention to this stuff. And And as June keeps saying, saying why this is important, why it's important to have this excess capacity,
Mhm.
how it impacts the town for getting other loans. You mentioned the bond rating. I think it's basically just being able to point to some facts rather than saying, no, we're just not touching it.
I think
Right.
you've raised a really good point about educating. It's difficult to educate voters about the budget. It's overwhelming to
Yeah.
them. And but to carve out this piece, this excess levy piece, and educating them about that, and having a position. First of all, we have to know what we're going to tell them and
Mhm.
what the position is, but to educate them about that so that they don't think, well, they don't think it's a pocketbook, or they don't think it's something that they can tap into, whatever it is. It needs to be clear to them.
Yeah, because it was sounding to me that, oh, if you're having trouble making the numbers match up, you have this whole other slush fund you can just go to.
Yeah.
And it's not really that. The way we were treating
Yeah.
the free cash, it's not just, oh, we have this pile of money. There's ways that it gets used or not used.
I just want to clarify something. I know this is kind of going off of Cliff's comments a little bit earlier with the 2.5%. It also causes a lot of confusion of the 2.5% because every year it's like we have more revenue than just the levy, taking the 2.5% off the levy. So if you took, for example, this year, if you looked at our target was new growth of 300,000. You had the rest of the things that were basically all the local receipts and that stuff, which came in at about another, I think, 85,000 higher in revenue, mostly targeting from excise taxes. Obviously, those bounce around. So you always have those type of numbers. You can look at your historical numbers, right? And we know they can have a recession and new growth could plummet or things like this. But if you took example of just this year or even last year when new growth we projected at 350,000, I think it came for this present fiscal year. So you take those amounts. It just so happens that our new growth number over the last few years is pretty close to the same dollar amount as the 2.5% off the levy.
Mhm.
So you really don't looking at like everything being increasing of things are increasing at 4%, 4.5%. New revenue, we actually usually are targeting around 5%.
Mhm.
So you could actually, where 2.5% is coming from the levy, the other new revenue you have. So it will all vary in there, but you do actually have where, in theory, every department could go up about 5%. And then again, 5% on what their previous was, and you'd still be able to balance the budget with only again taking, still doing a property tax increase, but only doing the 2.5%.
Yeah, the 2.5% doesn't speak to your property tax increase. It's those other aspects that
Right.
that go
Right, the
into the
2.5%.
revenue. Yeah.
Right. The
Yeah.
2.5% you're taking off adding to the levy is your property tax increase. No, those other revenues, the new growth, of course, if you're the one putting in a new garage or doing an addition to your house or it's doing something that's new growth, obviously you'll see that on your tax bill.
But Scott, that's why I'm saying you have to look at the percent, but you also have to look at the dollars because that new growth is dollars added to the basis on which you calculate your percent. It's like what the school committee did to us with the fiscal 25 budget, where they added the free cash into the 24 operating assessment and then took their percentage on top of that, right? You have to look at the base dollars that you're doing your calculation, your percentage calculation on it. And what you just mentioned, those things increase the basis on which you calculate your percent. So the dollars,
Right. It increases, right. I mean, as you add the new growth, you're doing another 2.5% on that. I mean, a lot of that new growth is
yes,
somebody built a
yes,
new home. I mean, that
yes.
wasn't there. I mean, now they have to be taxed for it. There's I have no idea what the breakdown, maybe even June has a general breakdown or somebody does of, it's like how much of it from where it's like a true all new something like of a home or something like that, and what percentage of it is just people doing remodeling their kitchens and stuff like that. I have no idea how
It's
that
all little
breakdown
stuff. We get a
goes.
building permit list every month from the building department, and I will tell you, there is no building going on in town for homes, and there's no economic development. And that's my only other concern is, yes, new growth provides about 5% when you roll it in. But if you look at new growth, it's also been stagnant itself over the past few years. So I have concerns that now we don't have the mall or any big economic development or housing projects on the horizon. This might end up being the time that we need to tap into that levy.
And I think where we're just now starting to come out of COVID, and things have changed so much too, I think we're gonna be having to figure out new trends too, as far as, increases and
Yep.
decreases in certain areas.
Well, and I'm not an expert, but the housing market is a problem.
Mm.
And new building is not going to be happening
Yeah,
here or anywhere else.
and we also have to keep in mind where the mall is not doing as well as we hope for. I know there has been a possibility of discussion even of the split rates. And that could affect the taxpayers also. So, I mean, that
Okay.
would be easier for us to be able to calculate how much of an increase would affect taxes, but
So then the other independent factor is the overall market valuation, the full market valuation of all the real estate in town, all the property in town, right? And that continues to move up. So that moves your basis up on which you apply the 2.5%. So that's one of the factors to me that says take out some of that excess, because we have it's growing on an inflated market. And I'm hearing the concerns. This is not a straightforward question. That's why I wanted us to think about it and talk about it. That's why I raised it, because and I'd really, to Julie's point, I'd really like to get some direction from Division of Local Services or DOR about what do they recommend. When Margaret Nardowitz came, we'd never had a town administrator, and one of the first things she did, looking around, and did it consistently, was to set up policies and guidelines. And the free cash guideline came out of recommendations from the state level that Margaret brought to us, and we discussed it on FinCom, and we created those guidelines, which I think when you're having a debate about something, you can go look at them. And I don't know, for a town our size, with our budget size, if 1.66 million is a lot on excess levy capacity, and is it in the right place? Is there any guidelines for it? And that take into account all that Kristen has mentioned and June is mentioning, and Cliff, your comment about, well, we know the wages, we know the salaries need to go up. So are those costs going up faster than the market valuations of property?
Well, remember, Mary,
Yeah.
the only new growth that's affecting, the dollar amount of the levy. The appreciation does not have any effect on the dollar amount of the levy. That only impacts the ownership of each individual's basically each individual has of the actual levy. So you don't, if you just create a budget based off of just new growth, people that are building something new, and likewise other things, all it does is, what we do have in the situation is obviously is that residential, because of the situation, is outpacing the increase in commercial. And because we do have the split tax rates, we are shifting more of that burden is being getting shifted towards the residential. But that shifting does not increase the dollar amount of the levy. The dollar amount of the levy is based on the actual dollar amount of what you vote at town meeting for the total dollar increase of the budget, obviously minus other things you're projecting, being the new growth and if you have an increase in local receipts.
So I understand, Scott, that the levy is what we actually tax. The levy ceiling, I think, is the term that I'm thinking about. That is the total. There it is: total, full, and fair cash value of taxable real and personal property in the community. So
Right, it just, right, the level, as a level ceiling, basically your levy limit cannot exceed the level ceiling. So as you increase your levy, no, your levy limit is correct. As the valuation of all property continues to increase, it allows you to continue to do that 2.5%, 2.5%, 2.5%. Though I would hope to never be an economy where we're talking about that level ceiling collapsing. I mean, we probably saw that with the big recession of 2008. But that's the type of really negative scenario you'd have for those problems to occur.
Yes, right. Um, yeah.
Mary, I'm going to totally reverse what I said in a bit, just to throw everybody off. I will
Okay.
tell you, when I first came here and heard whispers of underride, I thought you all were nuts. I'm not going to lie. I was like, you have excess levy. That is wonderful. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? I have never seen, I've been doing this almost 18 years now. I have never seen what we went through in the past 2 years in my career in government. June's been doing it longer than me too. We've talked about how crazy this is. I will tell you, the idea does seem less crazy to me now after what we've been through. So I don't want you to feel like all the caveats we threw out are negating the reasoning that you have behind this, because I think that is valid, Mary. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I have to second that, Kristen. You are right 100% on that.
So all of this kind of boils down to like a policy discussion. And I think it's okay to have that in this committee, maybe more so in select board. I don't know. But again, Julie's point about having guidelines from people that put this Proposition 2.5 in place. Tell us, are we doing the right things right now?
Mhm.
And we had this issue come up. Is this something that you might do to resolve or to soften that kind of issue? Because my fear is that we have people that just see that number and say, oh, let's get it. We need to spend it, right? We need to spend it. That's my concern.
Right.
And then the flip side is what I'm hearing, and very valid, is that the town needs that reserve to take care of unforeseen things as well as foreseen things as they come up. And I think I'm raising it because I think about the taxpayers in town. I think about the people that are going to have a hard time, already had a hard time with last year's increase, are going to have a hard time with this year's increase coming up. And I'm thinking about them and saying, what can we do for them? And does this help or does it make it worse? As a public finance question. I don't have those answers, but I'd like to run it down. I'd like to run the idea down as best we can, and maybe I should go have a conversation with Scott Hawkins, because he's the one that planted the seed in my mind a few weeks ago, and so now I'm talking about it. But
well, I think we can do some research as well too, and just see what we can find out on our end. Like it's a new concept for me. That doesn't mean that there isn't information out there and there isn't any recommendations that we might be able to get from DOR, DLS, or even our financial advisor, that we work with over at Unibank. So, and, they work with municipalities throughout the state. They pretty much are the leader in municipal financial services. So it's certainly, I think it's worth conversations and doing some research, Mary.
well, yeah, it's one of those things. I think people within the town structure is like, what, are you crazy? Don't take this away from us.
But then you have somebody stand up at town meeting now, insisting that we have to use it. So
Right.
Well,
Changes things.
yeah.
and I don't want us to change a good thing because of an abnormality. I think there's
Yeah.
other answers to the abnormality of the circumstances, but I still ask it. And maybe I should have had a conversation with the other Scott before this meeting, but here we are. And I want to let you go back to your scholarship, Scott. I don't want to talk about it at length, further length, but
I've cleared my plate.
okay.
I've looked online to see if there was any, to see if there's any town that's ever done it. I mean, other than finding mass bylaws saying that you
Yeah.
can do it, I cannot find a single occurrence. I mean, obviously, this has only been around since like 1981, the Proposition 2.5.
Yeah.
So, no, in the past, was that 23 or 22, 43 years? I can't see anything. So we need some historian maybe to see if anybody has even
Oh,
attempted it and maybe
we
know
found
the
some, I think.
logic.
June found some.
Shaz Jin found some.
For underrides, I don't know if I can't see anything with an underride.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I thought that maybe we and I talked about finding that page where it lists everybody. Is it not? I thought there were underrides on there.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at one of the pages here. I was just gonna send it to you guys that actually shows all the excess levy capacity.
Oh, you
Just
can
so you can
select just
compare it to
underride.
other.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
just
goes
so you
way
can see.
back too. It goes like, I think it dates it all the way back to like 2006 or 2003. It's like almost like 20 years worth of it. And
Here we go. I did find underrides.
Oh.
A number of them. I searched by just underride. This is a data analytics. This is the Data Analytics and Resource Bureau from DLS, and they list every override and underride that's ever been taken, I guess, since the beginning of time, as far as they define that. And there's a solid 20 to 25 of them on here. And they're small towns. Interesting.
I wonder if they're doing it for the same reason.
Well, that's a really good. I'll send this out to everybody. That's really interesting. I mean, we're talking. Let's see, Williamsburg, Ware, Lancaster, Groveland, Granby, Gill, Dennis, Amesbury, Orleans.
Orleans. Wow.
Yeah, decrease in maximum tax amount to be levied, underride, and that was 1998. So there are some as recent on here as 2022. Phillipston apparently did an underride in 2022.
Oh, that's a really small town.
Mhm.
it'd probably be really interesting to
is.
see.
Really
Um,
small.
It'd probably be interesting to see how many of those are also regional school districts, because you did mention Lancaster. I mean, I'd gone up, I'd used that, the
Mhm.
website you mentioned that shows the town's excess levy capacity. I mean, you can, for example, look today, like Lancaster and Bolton are right at the edge of, they're at their, levy limit. And then you look at Stowe, who's got massive amounts of excess levy capacity. I'm going to guess that you probably run into a lot of these situations with towns that are in regional school districts, because you end up having one town that's on the edge and basically is going to constrain that growth. And then you have another town or more than one town that can build it up, because that's not going to, it really isn't going to be tapped into very easily. So it might be a good thing, Kristen, send that information out there. And my own thing would be to see how many of them are part of regional school districts.
Yeah, I just sent the link. One thing you do have to do, though, it wouldn't send it just with the underride data. So you do have to go up to the top where it says select override, underride, and just sort it by underride.
Okay, thanks.
The DLS has an awful lot of new reports here.
They've been really beefing up their municipal finance bureau and documents and resources. I've been pretty impressed with some of the stuff I've been able to find lately.
They are really helpful.
Yeah.
Whenever I go in and need to find something, and the emails, I take a look at the emails quickly. I don't spend a lot of time on them, but I get the updates, and
Explains
it's useful.
why they've been asking for all the extra information, I think.
Oh,
That list you were reading off of towns, just quickly, there were a lot of them in West Central and Western Mass, and they are all in regional districts. They're little towns, and they're part of large regional districts because they can't run schools on their own.
Right, that's what I would kind of expect.
Yeah, like Phillipston is probably like, I don't know, 18 people. I mean, I don't know, it's a small place.
Right, right.
They're in a regional district. They could not possibly run.
So what do you think, Scott, that maybe the underwrite has been used to put a little brake on the regional district to say, don't
No,
keep capping?
I
What
don't
do
know
you-
if it's really done as a break on the regional district, as basically there are other towns that you probably look at those. I would suspect if you look at those particular towns that have done an underride, find out what regional district they're in, what other towns they're with, and then look at the other towns' excess.
Mm.
You'll probably find examples that the other towns are basically constraining the growth because they're at their capacity of
Mhm.
their levy limit capacity. So that's my suspicion is on that situation. So that's at least what I would start researching when I have the information and would be making comparisons to.
Okay.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
thanks everybody for entertaining my question.
Okay, I was gonna say, so are we ready to move on to the, hopefully is the last topic, which is finish off tonight's minutes? And we'll turn it over to Julie.
Okay, so.
Let's finish off Julie.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so can you see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what the Word doc looks like, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Tell me when you want me to scroll down.
I'm okay to scroll.
Yeah, you can scroll, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good.
Okay, so now we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second it.
Okay, everybody's all set with them? All right, roll call, Scott,
Mary, I.
Cliff, aye.
Julie, I.
all right, minutes pass 4-0. And last item, of a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, roll call, Scott,
We're gonna let Julie finish
Oh,
typing.
Oh.
And
Actually, I
then,
guess we need a second.
Look right. Motion to approve tonight's minutes as presented.
yeah,
Okay. So Scott made the motion to adjourn?
yeah.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Cliff for
Let's
Mary?
let's let Cliff second it, then she doesn't have to type.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right, roll call, Scott,
Mary, I.
Aye.
Julie, I.
all right, we're adjourned.